So I know that that's not worth it. It's not sustainable, and that's something I don't do or support personally. It just doesn't make sense for me. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be interesting because we have 5 exams over the course of 4 days, 5 midterms. And last week we had 2 midterms, and next week we have a lab practical. So busy times in the middle of D1 winter semester. I've heard from upperclassmen that for most people D1 winter was the worst term, so in a way that gives me some kind of like peace, I guess, because I'm like, okay, at least this is probably like the worst it'll be. And the reason that we actually have 5 exams in 1 week is because next week is supposed to be like a light week, and we get a Tuesday off for a wellness day since we're not getting a spring break. So the faculty was told not to schedule exams that week, although we do still have the lab practical but no written exams. And because they couldn't use that week, everything ended up being scheduled this week. So it kind of did the opposite of what they were intending, to like give us rest and a break by just making 1 week absolutely awful. But that's okay. It's about 10:40 right now, and I'm gonna leave for lab in like 30-ish minutes here. So I'm just gonna sit on my iPad and continue looking over my genetics study guide. It's Monday, by the way. So I have lab from 12 to 3. I had behavioral science this morning. We are supposed to do pharmacology at 8 a.m. on Mondays, but I usually just do it some other time throughout the week because it's pre-recorded and there's an assignment. So I'm gonna do that eventually sometime this week. Once I'm back from lab, I just kind of put in my daily schedule here, like when I want to be studying. So I'm just gonna do a little bit of time later for diagnostic sciences because I have obviously been trying to prepare for all of these exams over the past like weekend and last week and everything. So that's gonna get an hour tonight and an hour, like about 2 hours tomorrow morning, right before the exams at 10 a.m. tomorrow. And then this genetics exam is the heavier content per se, and that class is at noon tomorrow on Tuesday. So I'm gonna study after I finish with diagnostics. I'll eat dinner and then study up until 8. Bachelor break because good for the mental health and a nice break from school. And then when diagnostic science is over at 11, I'll have an hour to quickly review genetics and like eat lunch. But most of my studying was done like over the weekend and everything. But I also already got a handful of things done today. I crossed off lab even though I didn't go yet, but I did a quiz, did my podcast post. Yeah, good morning so far. I'm honestly feeling a bit of YouTube fatigue, so I don't think I'm going to film a ton of like montage clips and things this week. It's going to be mostly a chatty video recapping the experiences after each of the exams, maybe a little bit of how I'm breaking up the studying and everything, but mostly just to document the process, unless you all know how it goes. I will try to get some clips, but I don't think I'm going to put as much effort into getting little like montage clips and like filming me studying and stuff, just because I am quite tired these days and I'm really busy with exams. I'm sure you can all understand prioritizing physical studying versus setting up the camera to film me studying. But we will show as much as I can of this week, and I hope you all like this video. Alright, good morning. It is Tuesday morning and I woke up around 8-ish. I briefly kind of just like assessed my day, and I was looking over diagnostics a little bit, and I just did a 10-minute workout about 5 or 10 minutes ago, and I just made my breakfast here. Pretty light. I know I'm gonna have to eat a big lunch / really early dinner after my second midterm today, because unfortunately the way the schedule's worked out is I have to be in lab every single day this week. Monday, Wednesday for my usual sim lab, tonight, Tuesday for perio lab, for 3.5 hours, which takes up so much study time. And then Thursday, I'm willingly going to practice for my practical next week in the evening. And then Friday, I have radiology lab in the afternoon. So it makes my schedule extra busy and makes it a little bit harder for me to plan when I'm studying and to like cram study, I guess, to like only study the day before for something. I can't do that necessarily because I have 3+ hours where I'm forced to be in school, which again, the hands-on stuff is debatably more important than like genetics anyways, so it's okay. But today, like I said, I have diagnostic sciences in about 45 minutes here at 10 a.m. and then I have genetics at noon, and then that'll be done around 1:30, and then I'll have to leave around 3:30 to get to sim lab. So that's kind of the agenda for today. I last night was studying for periodontics, which is tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. and then I was studying for obviously diagnostics and genetics. The reason I was studying for perio last night is because it's a nice break from the hard sciences of genetics, and it, like I said, I have lab tonight. It is perio lab, which is I guess a little applicable for like, in this situation, which way would you move the scalar? Like that kind of thing. When we're doing it, it's a lot easier. So those questions, I guess, going into lab is going to be helpful, but generally speaking, I would have gotten more studying done if I was here actually looking over a study guide. But that's why I did it last night a little bit as well. I went over all the quizzes. I still want to read through a study guide that I have tonight when I'm back from lab, but I went through all the quizzes, which was a really great way also to highlight what I don't remember too well. That way I can go and refresh on that a few times in the study guide. So that was a nice way to like guide my learning. And hopefully the quizzes are similar to what's going to be on the exam. That way I'm hopefully studying the right information, but we'll find out tomorrow. So I'm going to take this exam in a little bit, and then I'll probably check in with you all after both are done, or maybe tonight or maybe tomorrow. I asked you guys on my Instagram what you wanted me to like discuss in the topic of this like crazy midterm week video, so I'll definitely be covering all those things, like how I plan out my studying, if I have time for anything else other than studying, how I decide like how much time to give to each class and everything. We'll definitely talk about that throughout this video. Alright, I think the last time I talked to you was on Tuesday before my exams. It's Thursday. Good morning, 8 a.m. Clearly I'm feeling good, so that's a positive sign, right? You might infer that I did well on my exams. Well would be a stretch. I passed. I did well on a few, barely passed some others, but we passed, so that's great. I'm gonna start by quickly recapping how each of the exams went that I had so far, and then I'm going to read some of the questions that you guys sent me on Instagram and answer them really quick, and then I will have to pop on for another update probably on Sunday or Monday after I have finished the rest of the exams. I have a midterm at 2 p.m. today in radiology that I feel pretty prepared for, and then I have a nervous system midterm that I'm behind on, but we will explain that at the end of everything. So, exams that have happened. As you know, I had 2 exams on Tuesday. First one was diagnostic sciences, and as soon as we pressed submit, we got our scores back for that, and I got a really high score. I forget what it is, but like a mid-90s or something, so that was really positive. And then I had a genetics midterm like an hour after that, and so far my grade on that is decent. Like I passed, still in the 70s, but I passed. However, it sounds like some people are contesting some questions, so hopefully there's a chance that my grade will go up to be in the low 80s instead of high 70s, and that would make me feel a lot better. For some reason I have this association that whether it's like a 71 or a 79, it feels the same to me. Like anything in the 70s feels the same. And like an 81 versus a 79 like feels like a huge difference, even though in the grand scheme like they're kind of around the same score. So in my head, if I can go up to something in the 80s, I'm gonna feel like super excited about genetics. But either way, it still went fine, which was great. And last week, nervous system and clinical foundations, like I mentioned in the videos before this one, that nervous system grade keeps going up a little bit because they keep editing the worksheet that was extra credit and the test. So I think now I have more of like an 85 on that. So I thought I had like an 83, but now I have an 85. So not that big of a difference again, but that feels a lot better because it's like, oh, mid 80s instead of low 80s. But that was last week's midterm anyways. So those were the 2 I had yesterday. I know the scores for them. I guess those were 2 I had Tuesday. Yesterday was Wednesday, and we had an 8 a.m. periodontics midterm, and that was kind of a hot mess. So most of our exams, we just log on and take them, but this one she had us log on to a Zoom as well with our cameras on so she could just ensure that no one was cheating, which is very fair. So that was totally fine, but it was a little frustrating because 7 of the questions out of 60 didn't work. Like the images got deleted from the exam, so in the moment she was just like, okay, just don't answer the ones that are missing their image and we'll just take those off the exam. But that's disappointing because 1, those questions were really easy. They would have been really easy points. And 2, probably the bigger issue, well, they're both big issues, is that that makes everything else worth more because then it's out of 53 instead of 60, so all the questions carry more weight. So I'm kind of anti that happened, not great, but I believe I still got like an 90 or an 85 or something, but I think that we're going to get either some of those points back that was messed up on her end with the exam, or we're going to get some kind of quiz, extra credit thing, or we can answer those questions because we don't exactly know what the images would have been. I just could tell that they would have been easy to answer. So if we can get those questions after the fact and like get some points back. So that's kind of TBD, but I definitely did well on that. I think I got like a B+. And hopefully that'll go up a little bit, ideally. And then today, like I said, is radiology. That will be exam 4 of this week, exam 6 of all the midterms, including last week. And then we have one more this week, which will round us out at 7 midterms. And next week we have our lab practical. And I've been doing a lot in sim lab this week as well because I've been preparing for that. So I had labs pretty much every day. Monday I had sim lab. Tuesday I went to perio lab in the evenings. Wednesday I went to sim lab. None of this was optional. This was all I had to go. This was my class time. For people wondering like how I'm scheduling all this stuff in, I had to. And then tonight I'm planning on going to sim lab, optional extra hours on my own time and willingness. And then I'm speaking to a pre-dental club this evening as well at 7. So I'm going to try to go to sim lab from 4 to like 6:15, 6:30. And then on Friday, I'm planning on just studying all day. The exam for nervous system, this is the recap for nervous system, similar to the last one. It's open book, which is kind of nice, except the questions are super difficult and it's not like a look up the definition of something or quick Google. Like, it's very application based, so having your notes doesn't really help you that much because the answers aren't going to be in there. Like, you need to really understand how different drugs actually treat a certain disease state or condition and understand how different drugs interact. I know it sounds like pharmacology almost, but a lot of it, it's not pharmacology, but it's how once you take the drugs, what they do to your body, like what the mechanism is. So that's open book, and it also doesn't open until 5 p.m. on Friday, so I don't think I'm going to take it till either Saturday morning or Sunday morning. So all of Friday, tomorrow, and a lot of today, I'm going to be catching up on the lectures. Because of all these exams, I've really been behind on the lectures. Honestly, intentionally, it was never like, man, when am I going to do nervous system? Oh, I keep forgetting, or I don't have time today. I keep putting it on my schedule. Like, I knew I wouldn't have started it until yesterday, Wednesday. Like, that was always my plan because the lecture videos were posted a little bit late last week because there was like an issue with the scheduling and the lecturer didn't know that it was their time, so they had to like get them up really quickly. And then they finally posted a study guide and study questions, and I wanted that material in front of me when I was taking in the lectures. That way I could kind of guide my learning. And that didn't go up until I think Monday. And as you know, I was planning on preparing for my 2 midterms on Tuesday during that time on Monday. So I knew I wouldn't have started nervous system until Wednesday. So I already did some of the lectures yesterday. I believe that there's 7 and I've watched 2 only, which I wanted to do like 4 yesterday, but that didn't happen. But I have all day today and all day tomorrow. And on top of that, I think that me coming up with my own practice questions and filling out practice questions or learning objectives as I go takes longer, but also has a better payoff in my understanding. And another reason that I kind of put nervous system on the back burner is because if you watched previous videos, I studied so much more for nervous system exam 2. This will be exam 3 coming up. And I still scored about the same. Granted, it was like the harder exam and usually lower scores for people. So by scoring the same, I still like improved in a way. But my actual score didn't improve. And that's, I don't want to use the word discouraging, but it just proves to me that I kind of have a capacity in that class perhaps. So I didn't feel like it was worth it to choose nervous system over other classes at that point. I said I want to try to do as well as I can in these classes and then worry about nervous system, and whatever happens, happens. I think I should still be able to pass it, but again, I'm expecting I'm going to get in the 70s no matter how much I studied, so I just figured that it made more sense to try to get A's and B's in all my other classes to balance that out rather than putting all this time into nervous system and still maybe getting a C. So that's kind of my thought process for that. But I will update you all, like I said, probably the next clip will be after I've taken nervous system and have somewhat of a grade back. But let me quickly go and answer the questions that you all sent me. Just a few, and I feel like I kind of already touched on them. So how do you plan on spreading out your time to study for all 5 midterms? So I mentioned my nervous system thought process. I knew Wednesday I would start studying for my Saturday or Sunday exam, which sounds so funny because it's the weekend, but that's how far in advance I started prepping for that. Genetics, I started probably like a week in advance. Perio, I mostly studied on Monday and Tuesday. That was Wednesday morning. And then diagnostics, I studied over the weekend and the day before, so probably like 2 or 3 days for that. And what else did we have? Then today, radiology. I really didn't start studying much until yesterday. And this morning, I'm going to review a little bit more. I went to the review last week on Thursday though, and during that and after that I spent some time studying, so kind of a week in advance, but that was it. I didn't continue looking over it from that week to this week, but I did put some time in right after that review to go over the quizzes and to look over the review again and to kind of point out to myself what my weak spots were. That way when I did start studying, I knew what to be looking at the most. Like I said, nervous system, we know I just started yesterday. So that's how I planned out my studying for everything. And like the reasoning for that is last week I had 2 other midterms, so I couldn't have been studying for all of these then as well as those 2. So I prioritized, okay, the ones that are earlier in the week I'll work on last week, and also genetics being so hard needed more time, so that needed to happen last week, as well as the 2 that were also last week. There were a few, I guess, about that same topic. Someone asked, how do you choose which classes or topics are more important? Good luck. Thank you. And then how do you balance which subjects to start and stop studying for and moving on to the other subject? I think it's really knowing yourself, and that's something you're going to gauge as you go throughout dental school. And just like, it's the same as undergrad in a way. Like, you know when you understand something, you know when you're probably not going to understand something, and sometimes at that point it's worth it to move on to another topic of a certain class or to even switch classes. Like, you just weigh your options, look at how many credits each class is. For example, I knew that Perio was only 1 credit, so that's why I felt comfortable only looking over it like 2 days before. And I think same for diagnostic sciences, I think it was only 1 credit. So if I got a B in that, not as important as like our 3 credit genetics class that I wanted to do better in. And again, I still didn't do that great. But you know what I mean. Like, I would rather have an A in the 3 credit class and then like a B in the 1 credit class. But just the way that they work, usually the 1 credit classes aren't as challenging as the classes that are a lot of credits. So despite all that, after my studying, I usually still end up with like high B's, A's in the 1 credit classes, and then like B, low B's, high C's, maybe high B's, depends, in the harder sciences, and those end up being more credits because they require more time. How many days prior to a midterm do you start studying? I explained that already. It just depends per class. A couple more questions. What do you do when you feel like you don't remember anything you've been studying or don't like absorb anything you're studying? I usually would, I guess it kind of depends. Sometimes I would just pivot and like move on to something else and come back to the same content with fresh eyes. Or because of the way that I study lately, I've been making a lot of Quizlets. It's really easy to make yourself remember because you can section off like how many cards, like, okay, I'm gonna go cards 1 through 20 over and over till I get it. Even if there is 200 cards, not going through 1 through 200, because then it's not going to be as fresh in your mind. Or you can use the learn feature, but the way I've been making my cards now, answer card kind of reveals itself, like, and the learn feature is like multiple choice, so it would be super obvious because I write so much detail on the answer part, like why it's the answer, that it would not really help to be in the learn mode for the cards I've been making lately. So I just use the literal flashcards, like spacebar to flip it, arrow next card, spacebar to flip it, and then I just star them when I'm struggling with them. And then, like I've mentioned in the How I Study video, which I can link up here, but also, and I can put it in the description if that's easier too. I also print out, not print, but I use the print feature of Quizlet to export the PDFs onto my iPad, and that's one way to see all of the content kind of smaller altogether. So that's another thing you could consider. But honestly, I think it's just breaking down the content into smaller chunks or topic by topic. Perhaps consider making some kind of flow chart to see how concepts connect or contrast. And practice questions are the best way to go, I think. Especially, that's how I studied for genetics. Sometimes people want to know how I study class for class. For genetics, he posts practice exams from 2013 to 2017. So I went through all of those and like corrected the false statements, and a lot of those questions seemed to reappear on the exam or were covering the same content. So that's how I got some questions right. But the ones I didn't get right, I think I just didn't understand, which is fair because I think I should have studied more in advance for genetics than I did. I don't think a week was enough time, but it is what it is because we have other things on our plate all the time. Last question, how much sleep will you get each night? I'm a big sleeper. Lowest amount of sleep I'd probably give myself before an exam is like 6 hours. In undergrad, sometimes I would do less because the way my schedule was set up was I would have physiology exam one day and anatomy the next morning. I had physio at like 4 or 5 p.m. and then anatomy at 10 a.m. And that was brutal. I usually stayed up super, super late, and I crammed for anatomy very last minute, which was very, like, not surprising that I could barely get an A in that class because I didn't give myself enough time to take in the material. But now in dental school, I just realized it's not worth it for my overall like productivity, and in undergrad it was kind of like a bunch of exams, then some chill time, a bunch of exams. But in dental school, yes, we have a bunch of exams right now, and we're not gonna have 5 at once at the rest of the semester, but every single day and every single week we still have all these assignments, all these quizzes, practicals, more exams but more spaced out. So it's not like I'm gonna have time to like recoup if I drive myself into the ground this week. So I know that that's not worth it. It's not sustainable, and that's something I don't do or support personally. It just doesn't make sense for me. So I personally would never do less than 6, but I probably have been getting about 7 or 8 hours every night this week because that's what I like to do. Okay, so we will cut to the next clip after I have taken the rest of my exams, and we will recap and end this video. I know it was very chatty, but it was just easier for me to do that rather than filming little clips throughout the week. I hope you all can understand that, and I hope this was still a good insight into how exams work for me, especially when we have so many at once sometimes. Alright, I was just editing this video yesterday, and I never really wrapped up about the last little bit of exams, the radiology exam and the nervous system exams. It's a lot later now. It's already March 12th, and the nervous system exam was actually our easiest one yet. It was like easier in difficulty for the way I felt after taking it, and my score was a lot higher than usual. I actually got an A on that last exam, which really boosted up my grade from a B- to a B+, so I finished with a pretty high grade in that class. Again, that was midterms, but nervous system was half of the semester, and then right when that was done, the class we're taking now for the rest of the semester is the musculoskeletal system. So that class totally wrapped up, and I finished with a grade I'm pretty happy with. And then radiology, I know I mentioned that I felt pretty confident about it, but after taking it, I did not do as well as I hoped. I kind of forget what my grade is now, but I want to say it was maybe like a low B, and I realized that there was a handful of a certain type of questions for figuring out and analyzing radiographical errors. I was not very good at looking at if it was an error in vertical angulation, horizontal angulation, was the beam parallel or not. Those were kind of the multiple choice questions, and there was a handful of those, and I'm pretty sure I missed maybe all of them. And then there were a couple other questions that I just didn't recall being on the slides, so I probably didn't get those right. I tried to schedule an exam review, but it hasn't worked out yet with my schedules. Hopefully I'll be able to look at that exam and see what I got wrong, because we do have a final at the end of the term, and there is some cumulative information from that midterm. But that's pretty much everything for how midterms went.